Recently, I've fallen in love with the lance in Monster Hunter World, and I'm really upset at myself for not trying this weapon sooner. This is an awesome weapon that is capable of some of the best damage uptime I've seen in the Monster Hunter as long as you play it properly. This is a weapon that dances with the monster by sticking close, but you might be surprised to learn that the lance also has some really good mobility through the use of its dash attack. But there's a lot of neat things to cover with the lance, with its guarding, its offensive capabilities, its mobility, so that's why I'm providing this guide for you. Throughout the rest of this guide, I will be taking us in the training area to show off the lance's capabilities, but I'm also going to be taking this weapon up against a monster to show you kind of how the lance works. I'm also going to be going over a couple of builds near the end of the video. If you want to jump ahead to them, I'll have timestamps in the description, of course. First, let's get over to the training area, and I'm going to show you exactly what this weapon can do. So first off, the lance is a very slow weapon, as you can see. We're not running around like other weapons. Our dashes are not very good, but this thing is an offense and defense monster because of this huge shield. Before we get into the shield though, let's talk about the normal attacks. There's 3 main attacks that the lance can do out of an unsheathed state. We have typical normal thrusting, done by pressing Y or triangle. We have high thrusting, done by pressing B or circle, and we have sweeps by combining the buttons. But this one you can't combo into itself. The lance consists of 3 main hits you can do before you have to either sidestep or perform another action that isn't, like an infinite combo. So we can do mid thrust into mid thrust into mid thrust, and as you can see, it goes from 1 to 2 to 3, but we can also mix in high thrusts if we want. We can finish off with one, or we can do a couple high thrusts and go into a mid thrust. It really is up to you. The wide sweep, like I said before, doesn't go into itself, but it is possible to do 2 sweeps in one combo as long as you start with one, go into another attack, and finish with another wide sweep. The wide sweep does as much damage as a typical mid thrust, as you can see, and the highest amount of damage comes from the final hit in your 3-hit combo. So typically we'll get 84 damage, 84, but the final one will do 113, as you see. The same can be said of the high thrusts, but the high thrusts actually deal more damage altogether compared to the sweeps or the typical mid thrusts. Next we have out of sheath attacks. All that there really is just by pressing triangle, we'll get a mid thrust. And the same goes for rolls too. If we press an attack button out of a roll, we'll get kind of a forward movement mid thrust. Believe it or not, that's actually most of what you can do with the lance and an unsheathed state if you're not blocking, however. Moving into shield tactics though, if we hold the right trigger on any controller, we are of course guarding like any shielded weapon in this game. From here in the top right, you can see we can do a guard thrust, so we can block while guarding. This does the same amount as a mid thrust attack, but we can't just mash it. This is me going as fast as I can. Next, we have the dash attack. If we press Y and B together, we'll go into a dash. There's a few things that we can do in this dash. We can hit a wall. That's to show you that you don't want to be hitting a wall directly, as it will mess you up. But what we can also do is we can run into any climbable surface, these mushrooms for instance, and it'll continue our attack actually for us. You can run as long as you have stamina. One thing to note with the dash is that there are a few main phases of the dash. We go into a mid run and then we get into like a level 1 charge. This means we start going faster. And finally, the final charge gets us the most damage on our dashes. The lance also hits anything in sight as long as you can move through it. So right here, boom, and boom, 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 and boom, boom, boom. If you want to not hit a wall, all you have to do is press the A or X button, depending on the controller you're on, to stop. You can also guard while in the middle of this. From the moment that you go into the guarding animation, you are indeed guarding. Right here, I'll try to demonstrate on this barrel bomb. Let's see. Just like that, as you see. Continuing on with the dash attack, though, we have the finishing thrust attack. This is actually a very high damaging move with the lance. As you can see here, it does a considerable amount of damage, more so than any of our high thrusts, like our finishing high thrusts. It does nearly twice the amount of damage. That was the level 1, of course, however, so the level 2 of the dash attack gets us more damage and actually results in a twin thrust. We got the same amount of damage with the 200, but we also got an extra 100 in there right before the finishing blow. And of course, there is a level 3 charge, however. Unfortunately, getting the level 3 is kind of tricky in the training area. I'm going to have to try some shenanigans just to get it off. I'm going to have to try running this way a little bit first and then start going right. One last thing before I forget too, if you don't want to hit the wall, like I said, you can go into just a normal stop, or you can start guarding right away. You can also turn around if you hold back on the stick and press X or A. You can do this as long as you have stamina. And last but not least, the Lance actually has access to a jump and mount damage without the use of terrain. All we have to do is be in a running stance and hold forward on the left stick and press the A button to jump. It'll even continue even when we hit the ground if we don't press anything else. We can jump as much as we want. Out of the jump, we can do an advancing thrust. This does a considerable amount of mount damage, and you would be surprised how many mounts I actually get with this attack. More importantly, however, with the jump is the ability to turn around in the air with your attack. We can literally do a 180 attack, so you can hit the monster where you need to. That's about it for the dash attacks for the most part. One important thing to note with the main attack combos is that you can do a dash to continue your combo like this. You can also do the dash attack as a finisher instead, and while it might be a little bit slower, I actually have yet to test that. It's actually your optimal combo for the most amount of damage. So if we go 1, 2, 3, and go into a dash attack and finish like that, we can continue a very long combo as long as you have a really solid monster in front of you, because the dash attack does move you, and so if you don't have solid monster parts to run into, you're gonna fly off in the wrong direction. This pole also kind of encapsulates it. We kind of start moving past the monster, and then at one point our attacks do not land. So this is best utilized on a monster knockdown or something like that. Talking more about the guard, we have another option, the counter thrust. If you press the B or circle button, you will get a counter thrust. Your hunter will go into a stance, which inevitably leads to the counter thrust. It does a considerable amount of damage as well. If you let go right after initiating the counter thrust, you will get a cancel counter thrust, which just results in a high thrust. If you're trying to counter a monster's attack while you're in this state, your hunter will immediately attack back with a high thrust. All I have to do is start blocking, and our hunter will counter for us. That's it for the normal shield blocking, but let's talk more about the counter thrust itself. It is actually a stance that can go into another stance. If we start counter thrusting, and we press the A button after that as well, we go into a power guard. This drains your stamina immensely. Don't be fooled though, it does not impervious to a damage or anything like that. It's not literally a perfect block or anything like that. Rather, this is more of a stance that leads into some other attacks as well. It's for this power guard that I specifically like to have dash juice, but going into the counter thrust and then into the power guard, we have some options in the top as you see. First, we have a leaping thrust. Next, we can go straight into the dash attack if we want to cancel it. And finally, we can counter thrust like we would out of the counter thrust stance. So if you don't want to wait for the entire counter thrust like this to get the final attack, you can actually do it a little quicker if you really want to by going into the power guard. That is it for the stances, but finally, I want to talk about the counter thrust again, but we're going to talk about the counter claw. If we press the left trigger while we are in the counter stance, we'll go into a claw stance. And as long as we hold the left trigger down, we will remain in this stance and we will immediately, counter with a claw attack. But this isn't the best place to show it off, so let's go fight a monster in the arena. All right, typical monster in kind of an arena, I suppose. If we start the counter thrust attack but go into a claw stance, we can block things, but we have to get hit by an actual physical solid hit from Fatalis itself. Then we can go into our typical claw attack. Something like a fireball right here, for instance, won't allow us to do it. It has to be a solid hit from Fatalis, which is kind of hard to do, Jesus! As you can see here, though, the power guard actually gets us killed, even though it seems like the most powerful guard in the game. This is what I was talking about earlier. It's not actually impervious to anything. It's kind of more like a secondary stance you can use. But if we want to clutch claw like normal, all we have to do is hold the left trigger down and click in the right stick to go into a claw stance that actually shoots it out for us. And then we can fire it like normal. Apparently, a lot of Lance players claim that Lance is one of the harder matches against a monster like Fatalis, but with the right skills, this monster is kind of a pushover, actually. As long as you have your guard timings down, you can kind of stick to the monster like glue, and you can block pretty much any of his attacks with the proper guard up skill. Some other movement abilities that you might want to know about is the dash attack can actually turn around, of course, but you can also press the triangle button to get a reverse attack. While you're guarding, you can also move around, of course, but if you press Y, you can actually do a guard dash. That's a nice way to position yourself very fast while still guarding. You can even do a shield attack out of this. This does blunt damage, so if you want to help with stuns or knockouts on monsters, then go for it. Out of this guard dash, you can also do a leaping thrust. Going into jumping attacks with the lance, you can actually shield in midair. This also puts you into the running stance. If you are also in the running stance and you're climbing ledges or places you can jump, you'll climb up automatically. As far as ledges goes, there's not actually a whole lot though. You can just do a normal jumping thrust, or you can go into the dash if you do the shield, as I said before. Next, let's talk about sliding attacks. If we're in a normal slide and we press the attack button, we'll go into a jump that leads back into the dash attack. This is reminiscent and pretty well, literally an exact copy of the jump that I showed earlier. And if we want, we can dash all the way up here, and we can even continue our dash if we turn around and go down a slope. The slope is also a faster way to get you extra speed on your dash faster with the charges. And just like that, we're already in the final stage of the dash. We can actually even go into a sliding guard, which a lot of people don't know about. There are a multitude of things in the top right, as you can see. We can do a finishing thrust like normal. We can do a jump. It's a jumping guard, actually, which is kind of cool. And we can, of course, stop, however, just by pressing the A button. Sliding, of course, is a very good way to get mount damage, as you can do the omnidirectional jumping attack. That is actually kind of all there is to the lance. The lance is a very defensive weapon, but that's not really how I look at it. This thing is actually kind of an offense monster. As they say, the best offense is a great defense. The lance allows you to stick to the monster, as you see here, while I'm fighting Fatalis. With the proper guards and timings and the counter thrust, we can really stick to monsters like glue, and that's how you keep your offense up with this weapon. It truly is an awesome weapon, and I've only recently been getting into it. Now, talking about a couple of builds that I have for this weapon, I have a mid to late game build. This is something that you should be able to make midway through Iceborne to the late game of Iceborne, but if you're starting out Iceborne with the lance, just get the best defense you can and focus on your attack and your play, and you should be able to clear any quest with time. Taking just a quick look at this one though, we are rocking the Minkar al Nasir 2, I believe. This is a Kulu lance. It's pretty decent. It has a very good amount of white sharpness, and that's very important for your lance. It comes in at 622 attack. We have some affinity in there, but some of that is from our skills. I will talk about those in a second. Otherwise, we are rocking the Uragan Greaves Alpha Plus. This is a nice piece of armor, as it comes with 1 slot, 2 points of guard, an offensive guard as well. We're using the Fulgur Coil Alpha Plus, 2 points of weakness exploit, item prolonger, a level 1 slot as well. Bombaro Vambrace's Alpha Plus. This is a very, very good piece of equipment if you are using a shield weapon, as it comes with offensive guard. It also has a level 2 slot, and the health boost, of course. 2 points of health boost is really nice. The Pride Mail Beta Plus. This is Seething Basil chest, so this is a little harder to get, but it comes with 2 points of guard, and level 4, 2 level 1 decoration slots. And the Clockwork Helm Alpha Plus. This is actually a very underrated piece of equipment as you're getting into the mid and late game of Iceborne. 2 points of Agitator, one of the better offensive skills, 1 point of Part Breaker, and it has 2 level 1 slots to boot. For this build, I did make a Challenger Charm level 2. I, of course, have a Challenger Charm level 5, but this is a charm that you should be able to get just by clearing high rank and even farming some of the high rank monsters. So you don't really need to do some of the Guiding Lands things that are required to get the Challenger Charm level 3. Going into decorations, this is not super decked out. I just have a couple that make the skills very necessary here. We do have guard level 5. This comes from some of our equipment. We do have a vitality jewel to finish off our health boost. We have an iron wall jewel to finish off our guard. We also have elementalist jewel level 2 for non-elemental boost, since this is a non-elemental weapon. And we have some extra critical eye, some weakness exploit. I even have a couple empty slots because the main point of this build is a kind of starter starter build into the lance and some skills that you want to focus on. So taking a look at those skills, however, we are using guard level 5, as I stated before. Guard, as you can see, massively decreases the impact of attacks and reduces stamina depletion by 50%. This is mostly so that you're not taking a huge amount of stun from guarding, not getting stunned yourself, but you're in a lot of end lag after you guard some really big attacks. So this really helps. Agitator level 4, one of the better attack skills in the game, increases our attack, of course. Health boost level 3, always have health boost, guys. Weakness exploit, this is nice as we're hitting weak spots with increased affinity, and since the lance is really nice at hitting those weak spots, this is a very nice skill to have on it. Especially, obviously everybody uses weakness exploit on every weapon, but I think in the lance's case this is very, very important. Some critical eye, of course, nothing special, just some affinity. We have offensive guard as well. Offensive guard is nice because if you can time a guard perfectly or very quickly to guard something in time, we will get an extra attack increase, and 10% and 15% really adds up on the lance's pokes. We do just have a few extra skills here, though. We're going to take a longer look at some skills of the decked out build I have here in a sec, but finishing this one off, we do have non-elemental boost. As I said, this is coming from a decoration. If you do not have that, that is okay, but this raises the base attack for non-elemental weapons. As you can see, we are at 628 attack right now, but if I were to go into my decorations and actually unequip it, we will go down to, let's see, 598. So it's a whole 30 extra attack rating. You really should consider this decoration if you are running a non-elemental weapon. But coming into my super decked out build, this is a build that I like to take against Fatalis, and I'm going to talk about why this build is so nice. This is geared toward fire resistance right now, but you can slot in the resistance that you want. Starting off, this is a very meta build. We have Rhyme Guard Greaves Alpha Plus. This comes with a lot of peak performance, all of it actually, and 2 points of Quick Sheath, a level 4 and a level 2 decoration slot. We have Fatalis for the rest. We are doing the Dragon Barbs Alpha here, though, because it comes with 3 points of Critical Eye and 1 point of Weakness Exploit. It also comes with the level 4 and 2 level 3 decoration slots. Dragon Claws Beta Plus, a point of Weakness Exploit. 3 whole level 4 decorations. More Weakness Exploit, Evade Window, 3 level 4 decorations, and the Alpha, this comes with 3 points of Guard on it. So the Alpha is actually an extremely good helmet piece for the Lance specifically. We are using the True Fatalis Lance. Now the Lance doesn't specifically favor raw damage. You can do Elemental Lance builds, you can do Status Element builds. It's really nice because you're just poking all the time with the Lance. It's also one of my favorite weapons because of that. You can kind of build it how you like. Everybody's favorite charm to use for super decked out meta builds. We are using the Temporal Mantle. In the case of building more for mantles, you can use the Rock Steady. This will help decrease damage, especially while you're blocking. It isn't for really when you're not blocking, but it does receive less damage from attacks when you're wearing this. So very nice mantle to use. I also was kind of trying to use the Challenger Mantle the other day with some friends in the Discord. This thing just does not work, though. It has a recharge time of 300 seconds, and even when you're blocking, the block does enough damage to decrease the Challenger Mantle's effectiveness. You'll only have this on for a good 10 seconds. At most, maybe when you're fighting Fatalis using this. I really wish Capcom didn't do this, but my brother pointed out that it changes the monster's behavior. So maybe if the Challenger Mantle was better than what I had hoped for, this thing might be broken actually in the right circumstances. I'd say stick to Temporal, Rock Steady. I actually think the Evasion Mantle is kind of nice. However, as if you are good with your side hops and you want to build the Lance for more of a side hoppy version, this will really increase your damage if you're good with that stuff, especially because the attack recovery windows on the Lance are actually pretty short, so you can evade at a moment's notice. Otherwise, also using fireproof or waterproof, all the proof mantles is really nice, so you can not get hit with blights as you are guarding and stuff with the Lance. But that's it for the equipment. Let's look at the actual decorations. Remember, this is super meta, guys. This is super decked out. It doesn't look very clean on the left. Feel free to pause the YouTube video and just take a screenshot of these decorations if you really want to copy this build of mine. Like I said before, down here, we have evasion jewels on the fireproof mantle. The fireproof mantle can be swapped out for anything else. Like I said, this is a Fatalis build, so I have hard fire resistance jewel in here as well. Because Lance is a very defensive weapon, I like going all out, and this is a nice build that you can easily swap the proof mantle for the monster that you're fighting, whether it's like Namiel for the thunder or water maybe. So if you want to slot in like a hard thunder resistance jewel and then change out the mantle, this build is really nice because it really can go up against most of the end game monsters. And this probably is my go-to build now for fighting Fatalis. I don't get the job done in 10 or 15 minutes, but I tell you what, I do not die against Fatalis with this build. I might card a couple times though, so if you come into my streams and see that, that's completely natural, you guys. Come on. But taking a look at the actual skills, we have the Fatalis Legend 2 and 4. We, of course, are removing the skill level cap for skill secrets, and we get full health and stamina every single time you faint, which is really nice. We don't have to build for health boost. It also grants true razor sharp, which is broken, of course. But we are running attack boost level 7 because we're just going super meta. We got critical eye all the way up to 40%. We have agitator all the way up to a whole extra 28 raw attack and 20% affinity. We have guard level 5, of course. This is a shield weapon, and the lance has the best shielding capabilities in the game. So, of course, you want to rock this. You can focus on damage lance builds, like I said. In that case, you would drop guard and maybe go for evade window and use the evasion mantle to get some extra offense. But guard is really nice because we do, of course, have offensive guard down here. Skipping over all these other skills for a second. This temporarily increases the attack power after executing a perfectly timed guard. And you'll notice with an audio cue, and you'll see a red flash if you do it properly. But you get an extra attack boost for a little bit, and it's pretty nice. It really does add up to a lot of damage. Going back to the other skills though, we are running stun resistance level 3. Actually, we're not running this, just comes from Fatalis. The headpiece gives you full stun resistance, so very nice piece of equipment. I do have the fire resistance because this is a Fatalis build. Like I said, this is coming from the hard fire resistance jewel. We have full critical boost and weakness exploit, the good stuff to deal extra damage. We have peak performance. This is kind of nice on the lance. If you do have a health regen augment on your weapon, which I do right here, I have affinity, health regen. If you're sticking to the monster a lot, so this procs, even though you block and take a little bit of chip damage, you can easily get this back. I am running quick sheath level 3. This is optional, but in some circumstances when you do need to heal with a mega or a max potion, you really want to be able to put this weapon away very quickly. So quick sheath is a must for me, not a must for everybody. I highly recommend it, however. Offensive guard, we already went over that. And we do have fortified level 1. This is just because it was a Fatalis build. You can still easily die when you're using lance if you're caught in the wrong situation or if you block improperly. Mostly for when you're playing by yourself, however. And we have a couple extra skills here. We have evade window level 1 and guard up. This is more important. First off, this comes from one of the pieces of equipment that we're running. Comes from the chest, as you can see. Very slightly increases a vulnerability window. Sometimes you do have to dodge an attack. You cannot block every single attack in the game, especially if it's a command grab type of attack from a monster like Fatalis when it melds you to its chest. So this kind of helps. I usually get hit by that attack. I don't know how to counter it still. Next but not least is the guard up skill. This is not a lance exclusive skill you should be using. This is a skill that can be used on any weapon with shielding capabilities. Guard up, as it states, allows you to guard against ordinarily unblockable attacks. It is down here is a shield jewel level 2. If there's anything that you can get, it is this skill. Get the guard up skill, get this decoration. This is extremely handy. Some attacks in the game are not blockable, but when you have this and you're playing a more shield oriented build, you don't have to use this on sword and shield per se because it has good evasive qualities. But on something like the lance and the gun lance, this is a must skill in my book. You need to be utilizing your big shielding capabilities when you're using a weapon like that. If you're not, you're kind of just a chump for not, honestly. You can get the guard decoration from the melder, actually. As you can see here, we can meld decorations, and it is at the back. It costs 5,000 points to make. So you don't have to farm for this. So guys, go get the guard up skill and use it on the better shielding capability weapons. This weapon is not the go-to for most players. In fact, I think this is actually one of the least used weapons alongside the hunting horn in Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter history in general. I don't know whether it's the big bulkiness of the weapon, maybe it feels sluggish, maybe it doesn't feel very stylish, but I can say one thing for sure. Recently, I have absolutely fallen in love with this weapon. It's a weapon that can stay strong and defensive in even the most perilous of hunts. This is a weapon that has some of the best defensive shielding capabilities in the game, which actually complements its offense by allowing you to stick to monsters like glue, block the attacks that are incoming, and counter with the counter thrust, and just really go ham on a monster, but still be good if you have proper timing. I think this weapon is actually extremely easy to pick up. I will say one thing for sure, this weapon is not clunky. This weapon is actually beautifully designed. It is very simplistic yet elegant. This weapon truly dances with the monster but sits still with it and holds on to them and says, I got you, I'm not letting you go. But the monster won't let you go either. It's a really cool weapon, you guys, and I highly suggest you give it a try. Now all I have left to ask is you guys at home, what initially drew you to this video and the lance? Do you think that more people should give the lance a go? And what is your favorite weapon in Monster Hunter? Please let me know in the comments down below. I read most of them and I always take them into consideration for my future content. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I have a goal of hitting 30,000 subs before the release of Monster Hunter Wilds, and every little bit helps. And if you haven't caught it already, I actually do live streams for Monster Hunter World where we host open lobbies and take down some of the hardest monsters in the games. If you want to catch those streams, I do them right here on YouTube. But that's it for today's video, guys and gals. I'm signing off. This has been Tera, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace!